Hey everybody, welcome back to the Modern Customer Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Morgan. I always tell you guys how much I love to eat. I love good food, but I also really value being healthy. I used to be really obsessed with one product my whole life, peanut butter. But then I started to learn that peanuts are actually not that good for you. And so I started playing around and I eventually discovered a product that I am completely obsessed with. It is granola butter. It is like almond butter or peanut butter, but it's not. It's made from oats. And the creator of this incredible, innovative product that's so delicious that is always in my pantry is Ali Bonar. She is the CEO and founder of Oat Haus, a CPG brand on a mission to make food fun. Their flagship product, granola butter, which I told you I'm obsessed with, is the world's first oat-based spread. It's really great for kids because so many kids today can't have nuts at school. So what do? You used to have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and that was your go-to. Now you can have an oat butter sandwich like my daughter every day. Ali, the founder, created Oat Haus after struggling with multiple eating disorders for over a decade. It's now her mission to help others feel less alone. The product can be found in Whole Foods, Thrive Market. I often just buy it on Amazon. Today, Ali and I will be talking about bringing our customers along for the business journey with us, showing behind the scenes, never before footage, making them feel part of the ride. Ali's content is widely viewed on Instagram. Her TikTok videos have garnered millions of views, and she is an example to me of a leader that prides herself on transparency, and she is an amazing storyteller that so many of you out there can learn from. I know you'll enjoy this interview. Let's get to it. Ali, welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast. And I love having you on the show because I'm so obsessed with your product. I eat it almost every day. And I also love your story. So I'm really, really excited you're here to talk more about how you do what you do and what our audience can learn from you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for having me back. I'm super excited to chat, especially this topic I think will be really fun and really important.
Yeah, Ali. So we are talking about bringing our customers on the journey with us, showing them behind the scenes of our companies, how we do what we do, make them feel part of the ride. And obviously, like your story, I know a lot about how you brought your product to market. But before we get into the leadership tips on how we bring customers with us, for our audience watching and listening that aren't familiar with Oat Haus, will you give us the story of the product and how you came into this amazing role as a founder of this amazing, amazing company?
Absolutely. Yeah. So thank you everyone for listening. And thank you, Blake, for having me. I'm Ali. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Oat Haus. And essentially we make a product called granola butter, which same idea as a peanut butter and almond butter, but I think as Blake can attest, it's a very different taste profile. Some people say that it tastes like liquid Teddy Grahams, which our original flavor definitely does. It's really delicious. I know I'm biased, but and yeah, the idea came out of my eating disorder recovery. I had struggled for over a decade with multiple eating disorders. Orthorexia being one of them, which essentially is this obsession with eating perfectly clean all the time. So I really, removed a bunch of different foods from my diet because I was terrified to eat them for a long time, and nuts and nut butters being a few of those things. And so as I started to embark on this recovery journey, a huge part of that was reincorporating my fear foods back into my diet. And as I did, I just really struggled to digest a lot of those foods because, if you've been treating your body like trash for over a decade, obviously it's not going to perform at it's not going to function at its best. So in the meantime, I was so determined, I didn't want to give up on my recovery, and I really wanted to replace, a peanut butter or an almond butter and find something sort of just to hold me over until my body was kind of working again. And that's where my head was. I wasn't planning on launching anything. I wasn't thinking of creating anything, a new product. I was actually working in tech at the time, so I was very happy in my job. Wasn't trying to be an entrepreneur, but sort of just stumbled upon this idea and, really wasn't resonating with the seed butters or the soy nut butters or any of these nut-free options on the market. And so just wanted to create something different that, obviously was nut-free, was kind of easier to digest, but tasted really delicious. And that's where this idea for granola butter came from.
It is a really special, delicious product for anybody that loves food, and I really love food. But I feel like you and I have so much in common because I also went through this whole journey of learning to love my body, as I feel like almost every woman and man too, but every woman has to. There's so much noise and pressure that we don't talk about. And we don't talk about our relationships to food or eating disorders. I mean, there's so much shame there. And I've learned to love exercise, but also love healthy food. And like the only way to do it to me is just to get really curious. But it's tough. So I'm so happy, like for my daughter's generation, that people like you are out there being really vulnerable, transparent, and creating incredible products too, and saying, hey, we can reshape our relationship with food. And I think that's a big part of what you do. And that's what we're going to talk about today in the podcast is you are sharing so much about your journey on your Instagram, about being healthy, mentally healthy, physically healthy. Can you just talk about the decision early on to use social media to let customers inside and see what goes on behind the scenes with the product, but also with you as a leader?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I just want to touch on one thing that you mentioned too about, this journey of loving our bodies, because for me, it's been such a journey and it's so ongoing. And I think it's not something where you finally reach this moment and you're just like, okay, like I love my body, I'm done.
Right.
Like, and I think every day is so different. Like I'll look in the mirror one day and, it's only been 24 hours later and I see like something completely different. So it really is
Yes.
perspective and perception. And so just being kind to yourself because obviously emotions and society and that plays into all of it. But
It's every day. I mean, you gotta
yeah,
look in the mirror every day. I always say one thing nice to yourself in the mirror. I even tell my
totally.
daughter that. She's only 5, but I'm starting early. Like when you look in the mirror, Naomi, find one thing that you like about yourself. Anyway, but
No, that's amazing. I wish my mom did that or, that's such a great role model and such a great practice because, it is a practice. And I think it's one of those things where so many of us are just defaulted to the negative. And I think if even, anyone listening that struggles, like the number one piece of advice I have is just not even trying to change that narrative to like all of a sudden saying positive things about yourself because it will feel very forced. But once you just slow down and recognize what you're saying to yourself, like that was so mind blowing to me. And honestly, it was so sad because the things that I was saying, like I would never say to anyone, but we're
right.
just so hard and just brutal to ourselves. And I was like, oh my God, I'm being so mean. And it's just this constant, stream. So I think that first step of just getting aware to it is important. But yeah, back to your question. I mean, I really started sharing my journey on social media through my recovery process. And so even before, granola butter was a thought, I mean, really early on when I was starting to embark on that journey, I, for some reason, just had this calling to share it on social media. And it was weird because I felt very comfortable sharing online, more comfortable than sharing to my mom or sharing to my close friends, even my partner, Eric, who's now my co-founder. But there was something about this, I don't know, just being anonymous online, sort of this black hole of nothingness of, just sharing to my Instagram. And at the time I had like 0 followers, right? So really I was sharing to no one and it was just sort of my personal diary. It just felt so much more approachable and easy in the beginning when I was terrified to talk about it rather than, talking face to face with people who had known me for years and would probably be surprised to hear this because I was very, very good at keeping it a secret for over a decade. So I think because of that, the genesis of our company, I mean, it really started with just me sharing my deepest, darkest secrets and moments. And so from there, you can only kind of I mean, it's just natural for me to do that. And obviously, there's certain things about the business that I don't feel comfortable sharing. I'm not sharing like our financials or anything that I feel is confidential, but I do share a heck of a lot. And I really feel like it's helped, customers, or I don't even really like to just call them customers, but it's people in our community,
Mm-hmm.
just feel a part of the journey. And even people that haven't been there since day one, my goal with just showing up online, being very kind of open and transparent, is that they'll come in at any point along our business life cycle and feel like they've been there since day one, because we're not, acting like this glossy organization that has their shit together. Because even companies that, you look at from the outside that you think have their shit together, they don't. And it's just some of them have better PR agencies and they're better at hiding it. So I think it's just refreshing, for people to see a business sort of showing up and showing the behind the scenes and the highs and the lows. So that's what we're trying to do. And for me, it's just easier because I don't really know any other way to show up. I think it would be more stressful for me to try and put on this facade and try and be professional or whatever that means. So I kind of just show up as me. I talk about mental health. I talk about my personal life, and that's kind of how I roll.
So, one of the hardest things for people that aren't like us, I mean, you and I are both founders of our own company. Like, we don't have a boss. So, if we want to talk about on Instagram that on Sunday nights, we start to feel really anxious about the week and we need to like do something, the dancing post that you put up, that's how you relieve anxiety on the Sunday night. Other people that work in corporate might not be comfortable doing that because they probably don't want to be perceived as weak or eccentric. And I think, that's something I always talk about too, that founder CEOs, they're actually often the most customer centric too, because they don't care about their boards or being judged by their peers because it's like their thing. So what advice do you have for our listeners and viewers that maybe they do have a boss and they want to have that transparency, be more open online, but they're worried about being judged by others or maybe losing their job?
100%. I totally get that. And, obviously every situation's different, but I just know for me, when I worked in, corporate America, in my past life, which was before I started this company, I worked in San Francisco. I worked for a startup. It was still very progressive. Like I can't speak from the place of, I've never worked for like a very big, Fortune 500 company, but what I will say is, really ask yourself, like, when you're going to work every day, you're spending so much of your life in this, sphere, in this sector. Like, do you want to really be a completely different person from who you are, in your quote unquote, like real life? And obviously there's certain things, like you said, that if something's going to get you fired, like, I don't know, maybe don't share it online or have a private account, whatever you want to do. But if it's something like, yeah, me posting, a dancing video, because yeah, that's how I just shake out my energy. That's how I kind of shake out the Sunday scaries. If you're just worried about being judged or people thinking you're weird, then honestly, I feel like that's a waste of energy. And I just, I used to feel that way. Like, I'm not judging you, because I definitely was like always walking around people pleasing and trying to, act a certain way so people liked me. And I just had this moment where I was like, why? Like, who am I doing it for? People, everyone's in their own world anyway. Everyone's worried about themselves anyway. Like, why wouldn't I just live authentically who I am? And I also had this moment where I realized, I don't even like everyone. Like, why do I expect everyone to like me?
Right.
And so, in fact, I don't like most people.
Yeah.
And so it
Yeah.
was kind of this nice moment to be like, it's okay if people don't like me. Or, to your question, it's okay if people think I'm weird or quirky. And I think too, more often than not, these moments where we're nervous to share something, we're nervous to kind of step outside the box, outside of status quo, those are the posts that I've found that I get the biggest response of people being like, oh my gosh, I love dancing in my living room too.
Mhm.
Or, I love doing these things that we think people will think we're weird for. And, you find your people in that. So I don't know, I would try not to overthink it too, because I think, our society is moving more towards, with TikTok and all of that, kind of sharing the more real stuff anyway. So, yeah, that would be my advice.
Is that a channel that you're on, TikTok?
Yeah, it's one that I'm definitely exploring. I really like TikTok. I think, especially from a content consumer standpoint, I think it's a lot more interesting than Instagram for me personally. Just because the algorithm really allows for more exploration, and so I feel like I find new people versus kind of seeing the same people that I follow day in and day out, which is fine. Obviously, I like the people I follow, but from a creation standpoint, it's been interesting because it's a totally different platform from Instagram, where, for me, Instagram is kind of the place where you nurture your existing community, and TikTok is so much more about, discovery and new people finding you. So the angle on the content creation is slightly different. For example, a post that blew up for us was how I started a product in my parents' garage and ended up on Shark Tank. Like sort of those BuzzFeed type videos where it's like every piece of content you're creating, you have to do it with the thought in mind that this may end up in the hands of hundreds of thousands of people that have never heard of me before. So you always kind of have to be, I don't know, clarifying things. And it's a little bit less assumption of, these people already know who I am. Because I've had videos where, for example, this is on my personal TikTok. I struggled with mold illness when I was living in San Diego because I was living in black mold. And so part of this like protocol, I struggled with a lot of health issues from it. And my doctor had me on these like really strong, prescription strength binders where essentially it just binds to toxins in your body, which is kind of crazy. And then that he also wanted me to sauna a bunch. So I ended up investing in this sauna in my house. And yeah, it was expensive. It was like $7,000, but I couldn't get out of bed. I was so sick at one point.
Wow.
And so I was like, I'm going to invest in this. Yeah, this was a crazy part of my journey. And so anyways, I made a quick TikTok about it, like 7 or 8 seconds about, I had this mystery illness. It turned out to be mold poisoning. I got a sauna in my house. And it kind of, this video went to basically all of these people that obviously had never heard of my story or anything. So they're all commenting like, must be nice to be rich, like, oh, I wish, whatever, just talking about how rich I was. And I'm like, I'm paying myself 30 grand a year, in a founder salary. It's funny. So TikTok can be kind of that way where it could be, a little overwhelming for someone who's new to social media. But I think if you always kind of come at it with this, thought of like, this, someone may see this who's never heard of me or never heard of my product before. It's also really exciting because you're not just recycling content to the same, viewers.
I would definitely describe you as a content expert. How much of your workload, aside from running your business, which is a huge effort, how much of your workload is just content and like calendaring your social content?
Yeah. Okay. So funny you said that because literally right before this, I was just asking Eric, my co-founder, I'm like, do you have any, template on Notion or any, like I was asking him for help on basically creating a content, calendar because I have different things, spreadsheets and Excel and stuff. But I really feel like there isn't something out there that is made for content creators that helps them really organize and streamline. So maybe another business for me down the line.
Right.
But to answer your question, that's how this business started. And it's really interesting that you're asking this question now because this is something I'm currently struggling with where, we started this business. It was just me and my 2 co-founders. I was doing 100% of our content. I was just, basically documenting our journey and cranking out recipe content. That's all I was doing. Well, I was doing everything else on top of that. And then, Eric and Ari were more operations. Now we're at the place where, we have employees, we have a marketing team, we have people that are doing certain things within the business. And we actually even had a TikTok content creator. I recently, let her go and I'm switching things up because I just found on TikTok, we weren't growing the way that we are succeeding on Instagram. And I was confused why that was because, she was really talented. She creates amazing kind of recipe, like quick videos. And what I realized was it's so faceless and it's so, there's no personality, there's no story. And I was sort of just putting TikTok on the back burner, like very honestly, just because I had so much other stuff going on. And like, it's funny that you asked, oh, are you on TikTok? Because I'm like, I want to be, but it's just one of those things that I haven't prioritized. So recently I was like, okay, we need back to the drawing board. Like, and we have probably almost, I think we have almost 6,000 followers on TikTok. But for me, I'm like, we could be just crushing it. Like I just know it, with how we're doing on Instagram. So kind of I rearranged things where I hired a full-time content creator to do, more of our high res, high quality content. And then I'm going to spend more time. I'm working from home now 3 days a week instead of one. And I'm going to just start cranking out content. And I love creating content. I don't think this is for every founder. I don't think this is for most founders. Like I know a lot of founders are like, I hate creating content and I hate social media. But just because I feel like I'm really efficient and I enjoy it, I think it does still make sense for me to, to do a lot of it. But that said, it's something I'm struggling with because I'm like, how do we scale, as we get bigger? Because obviously it's not sustainable for me to do forever. So yeah, to answer your question, I'm struggling with that right now, but it's a interesting dilemma for a lot of founders that started as content creators.
What about people listening and watching that don't even know where to start? They don't even know what to share. Maybe they've allocated the days like you have. They said, okay, like 1 day a week, I'm going to create content and do marketing, but they don't even know what the story is that they have. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I have a lot of advice. I would say first start where you're comfortable, right? So I think a lot of people first of all are like, I'm not even comfortable going on Instagram stories and showing my face and talking to the camera. I get it. Like it's a really weird idea.
Yeah.
And the fact that I'm comfortable doing that is weird, It's not normal. So don't feel bad about yourself that you can't do that because it's really strange. And so what I would say is, and I still don't feel super comfortable like talking to my phone in public. I still feel kind of embarrassed about doing that. So like I'll do my stories in my, home office or like somewhere where even like when my boyfriend's home, I just feel weird like talking to my phone. Where some people are totally comfortable with it. So if you feel more comfortable being alone, like, meet yourself where you're at. If you're not comfortable with that, like just film what you're doing. If you're say you're a small business owner, film your work from home setup or film, a day in your life and kind of just take people through your life on stories. And then what I would do, which is kind of what I'm, was doing right before this interview, is planning out, content for the week. So I think what's really important is to, hit different topics. So for example, this is applicable to Instagram and both TikTok with, the reels on Instagram and then videos on TikTok. Informational videos, so kind of about your product or about your service, storytelling. People love a story. I mean, it's just human nature. It's obviously why podcasts are so successful. So it's like, what's the craziest moment that you've had in growing your business, or starting your business? Those types of things. Recipes, if you're a food thing, or another topic that's relevant to your niche. So kind of breaking it out into different buckets. And then I would plan out the week and I would say, okay, this day I'm just going to bang out a bunch of recipes because, you probably have to go to the grocery store, get stuff for it, and then you can just boom, 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 do it all in one day. And then on Thursday, I'm going to put on makeup and I'm going to do a lot of like me talking to the camera type content. So those, I think that really helps just for me conceptualizing it, and then I think once you plan it out, you're not overwhelmed when, all of a sudden you're like, I need to create a bunch of content today, but I don't even know where to begin. So it really helps to take that time, like with anything, and just plan it out. And so now you can look at a calendar and be like, okay, it's Thursday. I'm doing this video, and this video. Last thing I will say is if you're not good at editing, you're not good at, voiceovers, music, you can either learn, which is what I've done. I use this app called InShot. It's free on the App Store, and I edit all my videos on my phone, and I just learned through YouTube tutorials. Or you can outsource if you want. There's tons of like Gen Z college students that are really good at video editing because they're growing up with TikTok. So you can find someone and pay them hourly. And then I would say last thing is just be kind to yourself with this learning curve. Don't expect yourself to explode overnight in followers. Like I said, with our TikTok following, I'm feeling a little frustrated with how slowly we've been growing on there. But the reason is because, like I said, I haven't been really spending a lot of time on it. I outsourced it to someone else, and it's like where we are today was because I put the time and effort into, sharing my story from my perspective. So why would I expect us to grow when I stop doing that? So just being kind with yourself and, not putting too much pressure on yourself to create content every single day.
So the last question for you is really about metrics and correlating your social media effort, which is a lot. And you knew that from the beginning, and it helped you get advisors like, hope I'm saying her name right, Jamila Jamil.
Yeah.
And, a lot of positive attention through social media. But have you been able to track all the wonderful content you're doing to actually increase sales in your granola butter product?
Yeah, so especially on TikTok, it's a great kind of top of funnel discovery platform. So I would say, in terms of analytics and tracking, I mean, they have great analytics, both Instagram and TikTok. It's tough really to track, say a video goes viral, for example. So we had a video go viral on TikTok for our cookie dough
Oh,
product.
yeah.
It was literally just me like stirring the jar. It took like 3 seconds to film. That's what's like so weird about the algorithm sometimes. It's
Mhm.
like, you spend an hour making a video and no one sees it.
I have that
And then
product in my pantry right now.
yeah.
It is so good.
Oh, nice, nice. So yeah, so it was like that, we got probably 1 million views, I think, on that one. So it wasn't like crazy viral, but it was, our biggest video. And I looked at sales and it was like, right as the video was kind of starting to go viral and I noticed a lot of followers coming in. I also noticed, I could look at Shopify data and track, and like we had a nice bump in sales
Mhm.
during that time. But that's really the only kind of direct correlation I've been able to track with that. Same kind of thing when we send product to influencers and they post, it's like you can see what time they posted. You can see if there's a bump in sales for the rest of that 24-hour period. But unless you're giving someone a link or a code, it's really hard to track exact,
Mhm.
numbers with relation to sales.
Well, I think that's one of the hardest things and the biggest lessons for everybody listening to the podcast is it's, especially with customer experience, it's not always a hard and fast rule. You can't always clearly link everything. Sometimes you just have to have this feeling that this is the right thing to do, that being transparent, using storytelling, letting customers along for the journey with you, sharing with them, that it really does drive sales, but you can't always track it. So if you can't always track it, you have to just have that, feeling, that je ne sais quoi. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it is, I mean, it's tough because a lot of people, when you're starting out, obviously you want to invest your time in things that will give you that ROI. But I'm telling you, this is worth investing in. Like, it's not one of those things where, digital ads, right? Facebook ads, you can literally look at the data and say, we spent this, we made this, here's our ROAS or here's our ROI. It's not like that necessarily, but it's building your brand and it's that groundswell. And it's really just investing the time and building your foundation. For example, it's like whenever we're DMing people in our Instagram DMs, I always ask new people if they tag us in something or they reach out to us for the first time. I'm like, how did you find us? And
Mm-hmm.
time after time, it's never, it's very rarely a digital ad, even though we do run a little, we run about 30K a month in ads. It's not our primary, like we try to do a lot of just organic. And so people will say time after time, Instagram, TikTok, or my friend posted on Instagram, my friend posted on TikTok. So it's so helpful to have that presence because say, for example, someone, a big influencer posts you and then people go to your page to check you out and you have no presence or you have very little presence.
Yeah.
It's almost, it's the conversion, it's going to reduce your conversion. People are going to be like, is this even a real company? Where like if you have a very present, engaged following, it's that kind of validation, that check mark where people are like, okay, other people like this, I'm going to give it a go.
That's such a huge point. And I even struggle with that myself. Like when I'm posting something, some content, and I want to tag somebody and they don't have an Instagram account, it's like they don't exist. It's
Yeah.
really shocking. I don't think everyone realizes the power of these social channels and how important they are. Maybe they're not even the direct sale, but it's almost like the padding around the sale that needs to be there. Because I even myself, like I don't really have a consumer product. I sell products that most people aren't interested in, but my buyers probably will go to verify me on Instagram. Okay, is she normal? Is she like interesting? Who is this? Is this a real person or is this just an avatar? So I think it is
Totally.
important to everybody listening. What is one thing that you are working on for yourself for the next year as you climb higher heights with this amazing product and your own leadership journey?
Yes. Oh, I mean, so many things. I think with relation to leadership, sort of what I mentioned before, where we're in this transition period. We have I think almost 30 employees now. And so it's sort of at this place where, it went from just me, Eric, and Ari doing everything to now we're sort of, things are taking on a life of their own. And while that sounds very exciting from an outside perspective, for me as the leader, it's overwhelming. And I've felt, and I talked about this on my Instagram stories, which we were talking about this before we started recording. Blake was like, I feel like I know everything going on in your life
Right.
because I'm an overshare. But I've been feeling so just, overwhelmed by life lately. And it's this weird, juxtaposition because you want to grow your business and that's what everyone is after. And then when it actually starts happening, you're like, wait,
Right.
like this is scary and everything's changing. And yeah, so I think just adapting is sort of the name of the game, and obviously, iterating and pivoting and all these business buzzwords, but it's true. And I think as a leader, it's hard to let go of that baby that you've built for the past few years, but just hiring people that are smarter than me, trusting them to delegate out, and just kind of, rolling with that and going along for the ride. So those are the big things. Continuing to take care of my mental health is super important as a leader. I think the busier that I get, the more important it is to carve out that time because it's one of those things where, I mean, it's today's Wednesday. I have therapy every Wednesday night. And it's like the end of the day, I'm like, oh, I don't have time for this. And then every time I, do it, I'm like, I'm so glad that I did that, So those are the things I want to keep doing in the next year. And TikTok, I want to prioritize TikTok. So.
Well, this has been so fun. I love always interviewing you. I love your product. I actually make my kids oat butter sandwiches every day and pack in their
Oh,
lunch.
nice.
Nuts, you can't have nuts anymore at school or even near school. And we love your product. So yeah, that is the most requested lunch from my kids, oat butter sandwich. Although I am out of chocolate. So right after this, I'm going to go on Amazon and buy a pack of chocolate oat butter.
Oh, nice.
Ali, if our listeners want to find you or even buy your product, how would they do that?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Blake. I love coming on. Yeah, you can find us at Whole Foods. We are actually launching in Sprouts in about 2 weeks nationwide, which is super exciting because in Whole Foods, we're only in a few regions right now. So Sprouts will hopefully cover most of the US, but otherwise Amazon, as you mentioned, our website, yeah, etc.
And if they want to find your Instagram handle, say it one more time.
Yeah. So my personal Instagram is just my name. So it's Ali Bonar, one word. And then Oat Haus is just oat.house.
All right. Well, everybody, you've been tuning into the Modern Customer Podcast. Until next time, thanks for listening.